Okay, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name's Tom Mitchell. I work for the Overseas Development Institute, and I have the pleasure of moderating this session. You are here for the session, The Resilient Future We Want, Children in DRR. You will see before you an eminent panel of child experts who will be delivering this session to you today. I just wanted to reiterate a few ground rules to start with. You'll realize this is not our standard UN session. So particularly, I think, for those who are taking photographs, please try for those photographs not to be a distraction. Please can I ask for photographers particularly to come to the side of the room if that's something you'd like to do. I'm sure you'll understand that this is a challenging task to talk to an audience of this size, and cameras can be a distraction. Okay, just in terms of what we're planning to do today, this is a really exciting session put together by the Children in a Changing Climate agencies. We are here to update you on the progress of the Children's Charter on Disaster Risk Reduction. The Children's Charter on Disaster Risk Reduction was launched at the last global platform in 2011. The children are here to update you on the progress against that charter. And the Children in a Changing Climate agencies have released The Resilient Future We Want, Children and Disaster Risk Reduction, which is a publication that you can pick up on a memory stick. We have a memory stick here, Children in a Changing Climate. The publication updates progress on the Children's Charter. So this is a session by children, led by children, so you've heard enough from me. I will come back at the end of the session to chair a question and answers between you, the audience, and our child expert panel. But without further ado, I'd like to hand over to the facilitators of today's session, two amazing youth advocates, Cressida Maudsley-Thomas from the UK, and Marita, let me get this right, Haug, from Norway. And Cressy and Marita, over to you to take us through the session. Thank you.
Thank you, Tom. And before we start, I'd just like to say how privileged I feel to be here, where we have this platform which is empowering young people and giving them a voice. We're not just talking about this, we're doing it. And so I'll just let Marita say a few words.
Yes, my name is Marita. I'm 21 years old, and I'm representing the Norwegian Children and Youth Council. And I agree with Cressy, it's a huge privilege to be here, and an honor to be able to introduce these wonderful child experts. So, we will just head straight to the point and to some guidelines for this session.
So the way in which this session is going to work is that we are going to go through each of the 5 priorities set out by the Children's Charter. So the first thing that will happen is that our child experts here will be introduced by us. We will then have a short video because whilst we're really keen to stress the importance of these amazing children here from over 3 continents and 5 countries, it is not just about the children here, but it is about the children all over the world who need a voice and need to be heard. And so that's what our videos aim to do. We will then be calling upon our experts who are seated over here to my left, who will be giving their expert opinion on this. And then finally, when we've gone through all 5 priorities of the Charter, questions will be opened up to the floor.
All right, so I'm going to do a short introduction of the 5 priorities. And we're going to have them up here on the screen. And the first one is the right to education. That school must be safe and education must not be interrupted. The second one, child protection must be a priority before, during, and after disaster. Number 3, children have the right to participate and to access the information that they need. And number 4, community infrastructure must be safe and relief, and reconstruction must help reduce future risk. And number 5, disaster risk reduction must reach the most vulnerable people. And this is, as you understand, not like a normal UN conference or meeting. We have some own children rules for this conference. So, Chrissy, go ahead.
Yeah, we want to conduct this session in the most fun, transparent, and fresh way possible. So we have a few guidelines to help you engage in what we're doing. And the first thing is twinkles.
Twinkles!
So if you hear someone speaking and saying something which you think is really profound and really important and you agree, then it would be great to see everyone twinkling.
And of course, applauding after the children have been speaking and before they speak, and just be super encouraging.
But obviously, but having children from so many countries and people from all over the world here does pose problems. So we do have a T for translation. So if anyone needs more time for translation or things to be said more clearly, please don't hesitate as a translator or as a member of the audience to do a big T and we'll respond. And the final and probably most important one is the C for clarification. If you're in the audience and you ask one of the child panel experts a question and you see a C, Marita and myself will then try and translate your question into maybe like a slightly more child-friendly, more lucid way of doing it if it hasn't already been done.
Yeah, we're going to head straight to the point now, I think. And priority number 1, that school must be safe and education must not be interrupted. I think we all can agree on that education is key to development and why education not should be interrupted. And a disaster can hinder children to go to school for a long period of time. And that can be really serious for the future development of the society.
It's really also important also to recognize the role school plays in the emotional development of a child, not just in their academic development, and also to understand the importance that going to school has for helping create a sense of stability and continuation of normality for children who have been hit by the largest turmoil they possibly could have. The other thing we also really want to draw your attention to is the role schools play in the wider community. They're a great way in which information can be disseminated into the community at large. So without further...
Yeah, and when we actually had the meeting 2 years ago where 600 children got to contribute on this children's charter, what like most of them said was like priority number 1 was education. So this is a highly important priority, and for example, this can be to build the schools on a higher ground or that the materials of the buildings are good. So enough said of us. We're gonna head straight on to our first child expert. Her name is Sapulin. She's from Cambodia. She's 18 years old and she's been involved in DRR projects both locally and internationally. So give her a huge applause.
Hello. ជំរាបសួរនាងខ្ញុំឈ្មោះអៀនសុភឿនមកពីប្រទេសកម្ពុជាជាតំណាងឲ្យកុមារមកពីកម្ពុជាក៏ដូចជាតំណាងកុមារទូទាំងពិភពលោក
Greeting, I'm Supun from Cambodia, representative of children in Cambodia as well as children from the world.
ចាថ្ងៃនេះផងដែរនាងខ្ញុំក៏សូមលើកយកនៅចំណុច3សំខាន់ដែលទាក់ទងទៅនឹងសាលាមានសុវត្ថិភាពការសិក្សាគ្មានការរំខាន
Today I would like to talk about 3 things related to safe school and school must not be interrupted.
ចាជាទូទៅសាលាទូទាំងពិភពលោកគឺតែងតែជួបប្រទះទៅនឹងគ្រោះមហន្តរាយដែលធ្វើឲ្យសាលាមានសុវត្ថិភាពជាពិសេសគឺយើងជួបទៅនឹងគ្រោះមហន្តរាយទឹកជំនន់ខ្យល់ព្យុះរន្ទះបាញ់គ្រោះថ្នាក់ចរាចរណ៍គឺនឹងរំជួយដីជាដើម
school in the world as well as in Cambodia face a lot of disaster issue, which include storm, lightning, flooding, earthquake, traffic accident, etc.
ចាទាំងអស់នេះគឺបានធ្វើឲ្យរំខានដល់ការសិក្សារបស់កុមារអត្រាបបងចូលការសិក្សាមានការកើនឡើងហើយអាចធ្វើឲ្យកុមារបាត់បង់នូវអាយុជីវិតផងដែរចាអញ្ចឹងជាទូទៅសាលាទូទាំងពិភពលោកគឺតែងតែមានដំណោះស្រាយក្នុងការដោះស្រាយបញ្ហាគ្រោះមហន្តរាយរៀងៗខ្លួនដោយឡែកប្រទេសកម្ពុជាគឺសាលាមួយចំនួនក៏បានអនុវត្តសកម្មភាពទាក់ទងទៅនឹងការកាត់បន្ថយគ្រោះភ័យនៃគ្រោះមហន្តរាយផងដែរដែលមានការជួយគាំទ្រពីអង្គការ Plan
Each school have their own activity in order to address all of those hazards in their school. But in Cambodia, we have our own activity have been done so far in our community as well as in my school.
ចាដល់យើងបានអនុវត្តសកម្មភាពដូចជាយើងបានបំពាក់សូឡានិងប្រដាប់ការពាររន្ទះនៅក្នុងសាលា
We with support from Plan International, we install the anti-lightning and also solar panel for supporting children's study.
ចាហើយយើងបានចាក់ដៃបំពេញទីធ្លាសាលាលិចទឹក
And we also level up the school compound in order to avoid flood.
យើងបានដាក់បញ្ចូលផែនការកាត់បន្ថយគ្រោះភ័យនៃគ្រោះមហន្តរាយចូលទៅក្នុងផែនការវិនិយោគឃុំ
We include the DR into the school development plan and commune investment plan.
ចាហើយយើងបានដាក់បញ្ចូលផែនការសកម្មភាព DRR ចូលទៅក្នុងកម្មវិធីសិក្សាផងដែរ
And we also integrate DR into school curriculum in my school.
ចាចំណុចទី3គឺក្នុងនាមខ្ញុំជាតំណាងកុមារកម្ពុជាក៏ដូចជាតំណាងកុមារពិភពលោកគឺយើងចង់ឃើញសាលាទាំងអស់ជាសាលាដែលមានសុវត្ថិភាពហេដ្ឋារចនាសម្ព័ន្ធធន់ទៅនឹងគ្រោះមហន្តរាយ
For me, other children as well as other children in the world would like to see school which is safe to their study and school must be strong.
ចាហើយយើងចង់ឲ្យសាលាកុមារសិស្សានុសិស្សទាំងអស់ដឹងពីរបៀបត្រៀមបង្ការនៅពេលដែលមានគ្រោះមហន្តរាយមុនពេលកំឡុងពេលនិងក្រោយពេលដែលមានគ្រោះមហន្តរាយ
And we would like to see all children have knowledge in DRR, especially how to respond to during this before, during and after disaster.
ចាយើងចង់ឲ្យសាលាទាំងអស់គឺមានផែនការកាត់បន្ថយគ្រោះភ័យនៃគ្រោះមហន្តរាយផែនការត្រៀមបង្ការនិងថវិកាសម្រាប់អនុវត្តនៅពេលដែលមានគ្រោះមហន្តរាយ
We would like to see school should have disaster plan including budget in order to implement those activity in school.
ចាជាចង់បញ្ចប់នឹងខ្ញុំសូមអរគុណចំពោះការផ្ដល់ឱកាសឲ្យកុមារបានចូលរួមនៅក្នុងសកម្មភាពកាត់បន្ថយគ្រោះភ័យនៃគ្រោះមហន្តរាយដើម្បីចូលរួមធ្វើយ៉ាងណាឲ្យគ្រោះភ័យនៃគ្រោះមហន្តរាយមានការថយចុះក៏ដូចជាដើម្បីឲ្យការអភិវឌ្ឍសង្គមជាតិមានការកើនឡើងផងដែរ
I would like to thank all of you allow me to have opportunity to participate in this big event and I would like to thank all of participants, especially our colleagues here who actively contribute to reduce disaster in school as well as in our community.
អរគុណ
Thank you very much.
Thank you. We'll have the video now. Okay, we should have a video now.
The first priority of the Children's Charter is that schools must be safe and education must not be interrupted by disasters. School facilities must be safe. All new schools must be safe schools, and governments must systematically assess and report the safety of all existing facilities to ensure the retrofitting of unsafe schools. Children, teachers, and parents should know what to do during an emergency and be drilled in emergency responses, including evacuation procedures. There should be well-made plans to continue education during and after disasters in a safe learning environment.
Để sách vở an toàn để khỏi ngược quần trôi. Chúng em lấy dây buộc sách vở rồi bỏ vào cặp. Sau đó đưa lên gạt xếp.
I would now like to invite Mr. Germa Alameu to speak.
No microphone for the gentleman.
I was given a very, very strong warning to use only 2 minutes. All right? To use. This is not well, this time is not to be counted on me. Do you hear me? Good. Once again, I'm Germa Alemayo from Ethiopia. I am the boss, the strong boss on national curriculum. In fact, my title is Curriculum Implementation, the Development and Implementation Directorate Director. Look, in Ethiopia, when we are talking about disaster risk reduction, we are emphasizing on 3 areas. All right? One is expansion of educational opportunities to our citizens. As our students are equipped with new knowledge, they would have the capacity not only to be resilient to this catastrophe, but also to have new ways of doing things. And therefore, since the last 20 years, since the transition to democracy, we have opened great opportunities to our students, where currently you get something like 87% net enrollment at the primary level. All right? This figure continues all across the ladder of the education hierarchy. And therefore, we believe that we have gone a long distance in providing educational opportunities to our citizens, 1. 2, as it is indicated, schools would not be interrupted only if they are maintained peaceful. And absence of peace is nothing but the function of misunderstanding, the rise of conflicts. And therefore, to avoid this state of affair, we have introduced into our curriculum civics and ethical education, in which we are teaching about values, tolerance, tolerance of culture, avoidance of misunderstanding, and so on and so forth. And 3, we have integrated this disaster risk reduction content all across the curriculum, ranging from HIV to earthquake, ranging from drought to that of flood. And therefore, if you happen to see our curriculum, I'm talking across all grade levels, they have these contents, so that, as I said before, our students not only be resilient, but have the capacity, to deal with these problems. And we are very, very confident that we are on the right track, but this does not mean we have finished our task. Still, much needs to be done. We are working in a very, very strong collaboration with World Vision, with UNICEF, and currently, particularly, we want to reinforce our civics and ethical education with peace content. And I'm sure from
Excuse
the
me, sir.
experiences that we get from here, we would
need to
more
keep
develop
going.
our curriculum. All right? And once again, I want to thank those organizations, UNICEF, all right, World Vision, who sponsored our coming, all right, to Geneva and share our experiences with you. Many, many thanks.
Thank you so much, and I'm sorry for the interruption here. So over to priority number 2, and that is that child protection must be a priority before, during, and after disaster. And why? Children are one of the most vulnerable groups and also one of the largest. 30% approximately of the world's population are under the age of 18. So it says itself that they need protection. So before disaster, what does that include? Okay, for example, giving the children the skills and teaching them the routines, for example, on how to handle a disaster. And during a disaster, that they have a safe place to flee, where they can have their needs covered, and where they also can feel safe. And after disaster, it also means that their temporary housings are safe, because there are an increasing risk of child trafficking, child labor, and also that the children drop out of school after disaster. And also to actually offer the children professional help, for example, because of trauma. So over to our expert here in the panel. Her name is Letzi, and she's from Lesotho, and she is 15 years old, and she's going to tell you about how she's been part of DRR projects in her local community. Give her a big applause.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Mutisi Tigita. I come from Lesotho in Butabuti district, which is situated in Butabuti. Lesotho has fairly warm summer, but cold in winter, sometimes characterized by snow. I am a member of World Vision Insurance Committee. I would like to take this time and rejoice in God's goodness towards us as children for giving us this golden opportunity to come here and present on behalf of other children. I am here to share my experiences on priority number 2, which is child protection must be a priority before, during, and after disaster. Ladies and gentlemen, we went to Mapoteng area and we had a discussion with children from Mapoteng regarding their protection when torrential rain destroyed their houses. We went there and we got the information which says they didn't know that when torrential rain will destroy their houses, they didn't know that. Ladies and gentlemen, we went to Mapoteng area and held discussion with children from Mapoteng regarding their protection when torrential rains destroy their houses. The information we got from them is that they did know that torrential rain will destroy their houses, uniforms, kill their parents, and leave them without a place to stay, parents, and nothing to wear. Again, they said that when torrential rain destroyed their houses, this is the time when they realized that their houses were built in the wrong place. So many houses were destroyed, but World Vision Lesotho managed to build 86 houses. We used a model called systems approach to child protection to enable them identify gaps in the effort made to protect them before, during, and after disasters. We realized that this model helps children to evaluate and act more on challenges and problems that they are facing as children and how they can be solved. And this is why we would like to encourage other nations to look and adapt this model so that child protection can be a priority. We have used this model because we found that children in Lesotho are regarded as silent community members. They don't have a say when adults are talking, they don't have the chance to hold public gatherings, and they don't they don't have the chance to ask about what has been said on their public gatherings. In Lesotho, we have some systems that are used to ensure that children are protected. This is whereby children started getting involved in participating in different sessions. Children in Lesotho are involved in the Children's Mock Parliament to advocate for enactment of a child protection and welfare bill. It was successfully done in 2011 while Lesotho had a Child Protection and Welfare Act of 2011, which was done to ensure the protection of the child before, during, and after disaster. After that, Children's Parliament at district level and at national level took place, where government officials were invited and children shared their ideas regarding their protection before, during, and after disaster. Again, children took part in Learning Lab, where children from other countries were invited to know how this system works. And again, children usually hold workshops and are trained on issues of child protection and disaster risk reduction. And after that, those children are sent home so that they can give this information that they got to other children through public gatherings and children's dialogues. So, ladies and gentlemen, my recommendation on this is that children should be allowed to participate so that they can voice out their concerns, so that their protection can be a priority in the presence of adults getting involved. Again, I would like children again to take part in a parliament whereby they will come up with their views and concerns, and decision makers and our parents also be included too. So we thank God that our Honorable Minister and her delegation is here, and that she will open doors for us when we get back home and share our plans with her to improve and share our plans with her to improve child protection, participation, disaster risk reduction, and reaching the most vulnerable. I would like to say thank you.
The second priority of the Children's Charter is that child protection must be a priority before, during, and after disasters. We know from experience that children's rights are often violated during and after disasters. Governments must ensure resilient child protection systems that address children's needs and rights through all crises. Further, birth registrations and adequate legal and governance frameworks need to be in place to protect children during crisis.
En los casos de emergencia, las situaciones de riesgo, en nuestros casos, las niñas, principalmente en las comunidades, pueden ser raptadas, violadas, y cuando viven en albergues, pueden ser llevadas a otros lugares por personas que no conocen, vendidas al comercio de situación sexual y cosas así.
So it's now my honor to introduce Sabina Hakatumalala, the representative for the Child Protection Working Group. Give her a big one.
Wow, it's very impressive to see how full this room is. So good afternoon, my name is Sabine Rakutumalala, very good. I'm not the director of a directorate. I'm just sitting here in Geneva leading the Child Protection Working Group, which some of you may know. It's a part of the protection cluster. And what we bring together 30 different NGOs that work in child protection for preparedness, response, and after a disaster. I think we do quite okay in the response and after a disaster. To date, we're not very good yet on the preparedness part. Maybe just rather than giving a long theory about child protection systems and so on, I can give a little example of a situation where things went quite wrong, which was Haiti 2 years ago, a situation that I think everybody was very aware of. And where I was, and several times I said, geez, I wish we had. Three important things that I wish we had done. First of all is the thing that Leslie was touching upon is I wish we had spoken to children beforehand and telling them, know where your parents are. When an earthquake happens, you have to know where your parents are. You have to know where you have to go. You have to know your last name. Basic things like that where we could have informed children much better on what they had to do in case of an emergency. Another important thing that I wish we had done was train the social workers. Haiti has social workers. They're there. They're good. I wish we had trained them better so that when a child had come to them that had lost their parents, they would have gotten better guidance and not been shooed away or sent off to an orphanage without getting much response. So I wish we had trained the social workforce and had maybe more social workers available at that time to do the work. And the last thing, which I'm sure you all followed in the news, is I wish there had been better policies and procedures in place for the adoption. As you saw, children were being shipped out of the country very quickly, and I wish things had been more clear at that moment, both for the Haitian social workers, but also for NGOs to know what we had done. I think child protection is very important in disaster risk reduction. I think there's very much we can do before a disaster hits, and I really hope that we continue thinking about child protection in terms of disaster risk reduction.
So we'll head straight over to priority number 3, and that is children have the right to participate and to access the information that they need. Why? Why children actually need the information, that's pretty clear, isn't it? It will decrease damage and loss if children know what to do in case of emergency. And also when we ask children, what kind of information, what can be done? They suggest through radio and through different, through school visits. And they also said, we want it to be added to our school curriculum. And what a great idea. And that really shows the importance of child participation. Because not just they have great ideas and great opinions, and that gives us the bigger picture, but they can also contribute with actions. And we're going to see some wonderful here's some wonderful stories just now, because in Japan, after the disaster in 2011, there were so many children who wanted to contribute and wanted to help their local community that some of the NGOs, they didn't know how to organize it all. So let's hear what happened. Here is Hiroto. He is 17 years old and he is from Japan. Give him a big one.
子ども自身も自分たちにもできるということを知ることが重要です。
It is critical for children to understand that we can contribute to DRR.
子どもが参加することで被害を少なくすることができ、より良い復興ができます。
Through the participation of children, we can mitigate the impact of disasters and promote better recovery processes.
例えば、東日本大震災で影響を受けた日本では、岩手県と宮城県の3地域で子どもまちづくりクラブという取り組みをしています。
For example, in Japan, which is affected by the Great East Japan earthquake, tsunami, and subsequent nuclear power plant failure, we are active in children's community building clubs in 3 areas and 2 prefectures.
私が活動する石巻市の子どもまちづくりクラブでは、子どもたちが地域の復興のために声を上げ、地域の方や行政の方との意見交換をしてきました。
I'm a member of the Community Building Club in Ishinomaki City, in Miyagi Prefecture. We have been speaking out, exchange ideas with people in the community and local government officials.
私たち子どもは地域を活性化させたい。自分の居場所が欲しい。子どもの意見を社会に発信する場が欲しいと考えました。
We thought we wanted to vitalize the community, have our own space, and wanted to have a place where we can express our opinions to society.
そこで今、子どもセンターを設計し、完成後も私たちが運営していきます。
Now we're in the process of developing a plan for a children's center. When the construction is completed, we will be managing the center as well.
あそこにいる仲間は岩手県陸前高田市の子どもまちづくりクラブで活動しています。
My friend who is standing over there has been very active at the Community Building Club in Rikuzen Takata City in Iwate Prefecture.
市長などの行政の人に提言書を出したり、実際に面と向かって防災やまちづくりについて話し合いました。
The members have submitted their opinion piece to the mayor and other city officials. In addition, they have also had a face-to-face discussion and dialogue on DRR and community rebuilding with mayors and other people in the community.
その結果、市が新しく作る公園に子どもたちをはじめとする市民の声を取り入れた復興計画が作られたのです。
As a result, the recovery plan, which was developed by the city, reflect the ideas and voices of citizens, including children, to create a new park within the city.
子どものうちから参加していれば、大人になった時に役立つと思います。
If we participate in the DRR-related activities as children, it will be very, very useful when we become adults.
未来を担う私たちが今後復興に携わっていくべきです。
We should be the ones to actively involve in the recovery processes as the future of our communities rests in our hands.
意見を言ったり行動を起こしたりしたい気持ちはここにいる皆さんもこの私も一緒です。
The passion we have to help in the recovery process by expressing opinions or engaging in various activities is equal to you all and myself, but adults and us.
私たち子どもの声にも耳を傾けてください。
Please listen to our voices.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The third priority of the Children's Charter is that children must have the right to participate and to access information they need. Action must be taken to overcome barriers to child participation in disaster risk reduction. Children should have access to disaster risk management data presented in child-friendly ways. Children's groups and networks should be involved in planning, implementation, and monitoring of disaster risk reduction. Children's voices must be heard in the public debate and taken into account during decision-making related to risk, vulnerability, and resilience. Disaster risk reduction must also be integrated into education curricula. Teachers must be trained, and educational material must meet the different needs of children of different age, sex, and disabilities.
Children between 3 and 5 really absorb this information and even tell their parents what to do.
When we see the flood, we have to run for home and be with our parents because the flood is bad and it can take you away.
It's now my honor to introduce Marit Victoria Pettersen from the Norwegian Ministry of Foreign Affairs.
Thank you. And I would just like to start by saying that Norway fully supports the Children's Charter, and we would like all these action points to be taken into account in the Hyogo framework too. And in Norway's work on development cooperation, in our strategy on climate change adaptation and disaster risk reduction, we actually prioritize the inclusion of children into disaster risk reduction work. But in order, we think that we should really stress that in order for children to participate, they need to be informed. And we saw that on the video. We think it's really important to educate children and to include them in that way. They need to know about climate change. They need to know about extreme events, about the impacts of this, and also about what can be done about that. And they need to know what's happening in their village and what are the events that may come to that area. And they also then need to know what to do if there's an emergency. And they should really practice on that, as we also have seen on the video. That's really important. But we think that, you know, the Yoga Framework for Action, you have an action point number 3 on education and knowledge. And that's really an important part of that. And I looked at the report from countries on how they followed up those action points. And you have an indicator on including disaster risk reduction in education. And I would just say that that's not good. We heard that Ethiopia is doing a good job, but it was only 4% of the countries that reported a comprehensive achievement on that special point. So I think, I mean, that's my main point here now. I think really we need an effort on that. We need to also ensure that this is a part of the summary for this meeting and also the Yoga Framework for Action too. Thank you.
Thank you, and I couldn't agree more that children need to be incorporated into the second Yoga framework. I would now like to introduce the 4th priority of the Children's Charter, and that is community infrastructure must be safe and relief and reconstruction must help reduce future risk. I'd now like to hand over to the truly inspiring Ayumi, who is only 16 and from Japan and actually lives only 47 kilometers away from Fukushima. So please give it up for her.
Good afternoon, everyone. 東日本大震災では教育施設をはじめとする子どもに必要不可欠な建物や市役所、そして避難場所でさえも津波によって流されてしまいました。
At the Great East Japan earthquake, tsunami, and subsequent nuclear power plant failure, city halls in some localities, the facilities that are necessary for children, including educational institutions, even evacuation shelters were wiped away by tsunami.
公共施設を災害の影響を受けない安全な場所に建て直すなど、今回の教訓を生かしたまちづくりを進め、同じことは二度と繰り返さないようにしなくてはなりません。
It is critical to make sure the same thing will not happen in the future. Building cities and communities strong, utilizing what we learned from the past disasters, and build public facilities at the locations that are safe and will not be affected by tsunami.
また、施設を作る際に、その施設に障害がある人や子ども、そしてお年寄りのことも考えた災害時に役に立つ避難用具も備えてください。
When building new facilities, please make sure there are equipment for evacuation that are useful for people with disabilities, children, and old people at time of emergencies.
次に、福島県に住む私が訴えたいことを話します。
Now, I would like to speak out as a child living in Fukushima Prefecture.
福島では放射線が高い学校で授業を受けている子どもたちが何人もいます。
There are many children who are studying at schools where the radiation level is still high.
除染をして線量を下げている学校でも、除染によって出た廃棄物の保管場所がないために、校庭に放射能のゴミを埋めているような状況です。
Even at schools where the local government decontaminated schoolyards, in some schools there were no place to keep or dump the waste. Therefore, they dig holes in the schoolyard and keep the waste in the schoolyard.
もし仮に学校を安全にしても、子どもの通学路が安全でなければ、子どもたちは安心して学校に行くことができません。
Even if the schools are made safe, children sometimes don't feel safe to go to school unless the school zone itself are not made safe.
これは学校のことだけではなく、 子どもの遊び場においても言えることです。
This is also true for play areas for children, in addition to schools.
チェルノブイリの原発の事故後、ベラルーシとウクライナで放射能汚染の強い地域から教室ごと先生と子どもが年間を通して交代で保養に来ることを目的としたサナトリウムが建設されました。
After the Chernobyl disaster, sanatoriums or health retreat facilities for children affected by the accident were built. In these facilities, children from the areas with higher radiation levels can take turns to live away from their homes together with other children and school teachers for a certain period of time.
福島県に住んでいる子どもにも安全であるべき学校で安全に勉強ができるような環境を整えてください。
Please make sure that we children living in Fukushima are provided with the environment in which we can study at schools that are safe.
福島の子どもたちの健康を守るために世界中の人たちに手を貸してほしい。
I would like people here and around the world to lend us their hands in order for the health of children in Fukushima to be protected.
I thank the opportunity to speak out today because this will become the first step to change the situation of Fukushima. Thank you.
The fourth priority of the Children's Charter is that community infrastructure must be safe, and relief and reconstruction must help reduce future risk. Infrastructure such as schools, hospitals, and roads must be constructed to be resistant to identified hazards. After disasters, reconstruction planning should integrate children's views and adhere to the principle build back better, safer, and fairer.
Sí, porque por allá, por donde yo vivo, las escuelas tienen grieta, por ejemplo, la de Santa Cruz. Para yo cruzar hay un puente, pero el puente se derrumbó con las tormentas tropicales que pasaron. El puente tiene muchas grietas y para poder cruzar le pusimos palos, porque si no, no hubiéramos estudiado.
Thank you, Ayumi, for your really powerful and inspiring words. I'd now like to invite Councillor Tosca Ramos from the Makati city in the Philippines to speak.
Thank you, Cressy and Marita. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Tosca Puno Ramos from the city government of Makati, and I believe leaders in government must always step up to be more aggressive and innovative. In Makati City, we promote and prioritize green infrastructure that is resilient to disaster. We have allocated a large amount of the city's budget to build a new 12-story hospital, renovation of our city hall, new barangay halls with health centers in each one, all in accordance to our national building code. Relocated students away from the fault line, not to hinder the free education given in the city. We have our city engineers and officials to continue monitoring. I believe in strong political will for our leaders and active participation of our families in our communities. All these moved by our love for one another and for our children. For in love, nothing is impossible. Maraming salamat po. Arigato gozaimasu. Merci beaucoup. Thank you very much.
And thank you very much, Tosca Ramos, for your inspiring words. I'd now like to move on to the fifth priority of the Children's Charter, which is that disaster risk reduction must reach the most vulnerable. I'm just going to say a few words, but often the most vulnerable are, in fact, the hardest to reach. So the one thing that I would implore you all to do here is to adopt the inquisitiveness of a child when talking about reaching the most vulnerable, to ask the questions how and why. How are you going to reach those who are not in school? How are you going to reach those from ethnic minorities? How are you going to reach those with disabilities? The one thing to remember is to not see children as a homogenous group, but to recognize the role that age, sex, and disability plays. And so with that in mind, I would now like to hand you over to one of the most courageous and brave young men I have ever met. I'd like to introduce you to Jan from Japan, who has lived through some... Vietnam. From Vietnam. who has taught me so much, and I'm sure will teach you so much. So over to you, Jan.
Dear aunt and uncles, dear my children with disabilities, somewhere here. My name is Trần Công Nhân. I am 11 years old. I come from Vietnam. I am living with my parents in Vietnam. First of all, I would like to say I wish you good health and luckiness in your life. So now I will tell you the story about the flood in my village. In my village, the flood is very big. It's higher than my sister's height. When the flood come, my parents put me on the banana trees to be floated. I was so scared at that moment. I called, "Mom, come to help me." Then my mom come and she carried me up to the second floor. So the flood water came very high. I was so scared at the moment, and I talked with my parents that now there is the only way for us to be survive. That if the water get higher, please push the roofing and then push me out of the roofing. So this is the only way. This is the only way for us to be survive. If the water come higher up to the roofing, then you and me will be die together. One hour later, the water get lower and lower. My mother said, "Thank God." From that experience, whenever I see flood and rain, I feel very scared. Now I bet you 2 points I want to say. So the first point is that please develop a flood preparedness program, and whenever the flood comes, please evacuate children with disability to a safe place before the non-disabled children. The second point is that please teach us about how to prepare for the flood, and especially for children with hearing impairment. When you train for them, please invite family members to come also so that they can retrain their family kids. Thank you very much for your listening.
The fifth and last priority of the Children's Charter is that disaster risk reduction must reach the most vulnerable. The most vulnerable are often the hardest to reach. Disaster risk reduction interventions must be tailored to build resilience for all. Disabled boys and girls, out-of-school children, ethnic minorities, migrant children, child laborers, and other vulnerable groups must be included in risk reduction efforts.
En casos de inundaciones, terremotos o ciclones, los padres son los primeros en salir, pero eso no puede ser así. Los que tienen que ser primeramente protegidos son los niños, niñas y adolescentes, y también que no solamente los padres tienen que cumplir con esa tarea, sino también las autoridades.
Thank you, Jan, for your truly inspiring words, and I can see that everyone agreed with me. I'd now like to hand over to Dr. Maureen Fordham from the University of Northumbria in the UK.
Thank you, everybody. I hope you realize how hard it is for us adults to get up here after that. Thank you. So, children. It's a label, isn't it? We use it all the time. We probably all have some very simple notion in our head each time of what we mean. But I think we can see, we've only got to look at this panel to see that children are not all the same. They're very different. And so we really need to break down that category when we're thinking about children. There's a lot we still need to do. So, we've heard, I think, several times today about different subgroups of children. The children that you see every day may not be the most vulnerable children in a particular circumstance. The children who you don't see, the children like the street kids, the children who belong to marginalized groups, who are hidden. Who is thinking about them? Who's taking care of them? Who's planning for them? We don't know often what their situation is. We need to do a lot more about that. Children, when we say children, we're also talking about a whole range of ages. We're talking about infants. We're talking about young people. We're talking about a range of different needs and expectations. So we need, again, to refine that group of children very much more. What about adolescent girls? I work a lot on gender. And as we all know, gender equals women. Yes? No? But we often bundle together women and girls. But they have very particularly different needs. We see all the time the problems in shelters and in camps with the lack of sanitary goods for women, but even more so, adolescent girls need these because the shame and the embarrassment of not having what they need keeps them prisoners, and not just when they're in shelters and camps, just in the everyday too. So I could go on. There's a long list. We need to recognize those different needs, those different vulnerabilities for sure, but that's only part of the story. And I think what we can see here is the other side of the coin, which is not just the vulnerabilities, but it's also the contributions. So don't just remember to add kids into your list and your list of vulnerable groups. We need to be thinking about the contributions that children and young people can make. We need to be thinking about the experiences that they have in their lives, even though their lives may be quite short. They have experiences, and from those experiences, they have contributions to make. And we're talking about something that's active. We're not talking about something passive on a list. We're talking about active participation. And I think we've got excellent ambassadors for that here. I can think of just one example from working with Plan in El Salvador. I think of this one person, Cindy, very often, who was trained by Plan and partners in 2002. I first met her in 2004, by which time she was a young committee member, a school emergency preparedness committee, working then for her school, for her community. But then she went on to be a community worker of her own. So she turned that training into a career, really. She took that all the way through, and I'm sure she's continuing to do that now. She had a great contribution to make as a child, a young person, and now as an adult. So I haven't got enough time to say all the things I would love to say, but really, children like adults, they're not all the same. They've got stories to tell, they've got contributions to make, they've got the right to contribute to their futures and to ours. And let's make that future a resilient one. And thank you, everybody.
Wow, thank you, Dr. Maureen Fordham. I couldn't really agree with any more of what you said. Yes, we should recognise the idiosyncrasies of children in each and every one of them. And yes, we should really recognise that whilst children are vulnerable, they are so innovative and can give so much back to their communities. And it's thanks to empowerment in children that we get young adults and adults themselves who can really go forth and do something positive in society. So thank you for leaving us on that really positive note. But I'd now like to hand you back to Tom for questions.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, this here in front of you is your expert panel. The floor is open to you to ask questions of your expert panel. You can, in one mind, treat them as 5 Secretary Generals of the United Nations. They are here as your experts, but also remember they are children. And so in asking your questions, please be short. Please ask a question, not just a statement. If you can direct your question to somebody, that would be great. Speak slowly and speak clearly. And if the question's convoluted in some way or it's just difficult to understand, please forgive us if we try and make some kind of translation. Okay?
And the one asking the question is going to hold this globe.
Yeah. Okay, you have to throw the globe between each other as you ask a question. Just the second thing to... you also need to be able to catch the globe. There will be a microphone roving around as well, but if the microphone doesn't get to you, please speak loudly. Just to say, we will be also taking questions from our Twitter feed. Children have been very keen to encourage children from around the world and from adults from around the world to also ask questions. So where possible, I will interject and ask questions from our Twitter feed. Okay, show of hands. Yes, in the front here with the first ball. Sir, stand up and introduce yourself.
And I really wanted to ask, any one of you who would like to answer, what do you think about technological disasters? Because there's all sorts of disasters. We know that there are disasters to do with natural things like earthquakes, but then there's disasters to do with man-made things. Do you think that man-made disasters should be equal within the Hyogo framework?
Ayumi from Japan, would you like to answer? Yeah? Wow, perfect.
Do you think that man-made disasters should have equal weight in the Hyogo framework?
会議でも福島県の原子力発電所での事故を他の災害と同じように考えてほしいと思っています。
I strongly hope that and wish. Well, no, she chose me not to use the word hope and wish yesterday when we were practicing for today for different sentences. I really want the technological disaster or man-made disasters such as nuclear power plant failures to be part of the discussion and the post-Hyogo framework of action. Clearly.
なぜなら人的な災害も他の自然災害と同じように子どもの心にずっと深くまでしばらく影響を与えてしまうからです。
The reason I'm saying this is because the man-made disaster, just like natural disaster, will have impact on children, especially a psychological impact to our heart. That's why I think it should be treated equally in the discussion.
逆に質問したいことがあるのですが、いいですか？
I actually have a question for you.
Really?
東日本大震災で被害を受けた私たち日本から来たものが作った提言書がここにあります。これの内容で印象に残った点があれば教えてください。
I'm here with this document that was put together by the children affected by the disaster in 2011. If you have any comments, well, first please pick up the copy, but if you have any comments, please share with us.
Okay, so let me just say the title of this document is Voices of Children from Tohoku. How do we say it?
Yes.
Tohoku. And so maybe it's a bit difficult for Nick to answer right now. Nick, have you got an answer? Very good. Okay, we have. It's okay. We have another question. Somebody is holding the ball. Okay. Thank you, sir. Your name as well, and where you're from?
Okay, I'm the PS Health for Lesotho, and I'm proud of the delegation that is here representing the whole world. The most I would say, and Lesotho is being represented by a wonderful young lady there called Mutsidisi. That's somebody that name means after we have had a disaster, we then get rescued. It means that the name was given for her to rescue us. So after we have been wiped tears, my question is this. Much as I want to allude with my Minister here of Health, that we have been touched by our distinguished delegates and Secretary Generals here, in particular the gentleman from Vietnam. But the question then, the most outstanding is that we will have disasters like we had one in the United States of America. And that has touched us a lot in these few days. But what has touched us about that is the fact that we never prepare ourselves for disasters and we don't know where they come. It doesn't matter the power of the economy. So the panelists or the Secretary Generals tell us, what should we do to meet up to your expectations?
I think people ask tougher questions of this panel than they would of other panels. So we're just waiting for the translation of the question, yeah.
Was the question clear to everyone? Clarification? Yes, clarification. So as I understood the question was, how can we, what can we do as governments in order to prepare better for disasters? Yes. Yes. Okay.
Do you want to take?
Akari?
Okay, then we have a respondent in the front of the audience. Okay.
My
name is Akari.
17歳です。
I'm 17 years
岩
old.
手県の陸前高田市から来ました。
I came from Rikuzen Takata city of Iwate Prefecture in
と
Japan.
行政の人、政府の人にやってほしいことはやっぱり子どもの声に耳を傾けてほしいっていうことです。
I would really like government officials to listen to children's voices.
子どもは今日ここにいる子どもたちを含め世界中の子どもたちはとても素晴らしい意見をたくさん持っていると思うので、それに耳を傾ければもっといい世界が作れるんじゃないかなって思います。
I think there are many children, children in the world actually have ideas. And if you listen to the government officials, always listen to children, I think that the world would be much better.
Thank you.
And Sapulin from Cambodia wanted to say something?
Hello. ចាអញ្ចឹងខ្ញុំចង់ចូលរួមចំណែកក្នុងការឆ្លើយនៅសំណួរនេះផងដែរ
I would like to contribute to this question.
ចាអញ្ចឹងតកតងទៅនឹងសំណួរដែលបានសួរថាតើរដ្ឋាភិបាលគួរធ្វើយ៉ាងណាដើម្បីឲ្យបំណងរបស់កុមារបានសម្រេចនោះ
The question related to what the government should do in order to achieve the expectation of children and everybody.
ចាខ្ញុំគិតថាតើខ្ញុំចង់សួរទៅលោកវិញផងដែរថានៅពេលដែលសុំទោសខ្ញុំចង់និយាយថានៅពេលបើសិនជាលោកចង់ឲ្យបំណងរបស់កុមារបានសម្រេចដូចជាចង់បំពេញបំណងរបស់កុមារនោះសូមលោកស្ដាប់នៅសម្ដីរបស់កុមារនៅពេលដែលនិយាយទៅកាន់អ្នកទាំងអស់គ្នានៅសំណុំពររបស់កុមារហើយលោកសូមមេត្តាគិតពិចារណានៅសម្ដីរបស់កុមារហើយលោកគិតថាតើលោកអាចជួយសម្រេចទៅបំណងរបស់កុមារបានអត់
In order to achieve the expectation, all of you as adults should listen to the children, should encourage and provide opportunity for children, and should support children's voice.
ចាអញ្ចឹងខ្ញុំសូមសួរទៅវិញផងដែរថាតើសំណុំពររបស់កុមារតើលោកអាចជួយបានដែរអត់ក្នុងការដែលដាក់បញ្ចូលទៅក្នុងការងាររបស់រដ្ឋាភិបាល
I would like to ask you back whether the requests or proposed from children can be adopted or can be implemented in the government or not.
ខ្ញុំគិតថា
Do you want to answer?
ខ្ញុំគិតថាបើសិនជាលោកអាចដាក់បញ្ចូលសំណុំពររបស់កុមារនៅក្នុងផែនការរបស់រដ្ឋាភិបាលនោះសំណុំពររបស់កុមារនឹងបានសម្រេច
I think that if you accept the proposal from children, I think that everything will achieve.
I think we see nods of agreement here from the Lesotho delegation. Okay.
Adding more on what have just said, we as children from Lesotho would like to have chance to voice out our concerns and views like we had the chance in 2011 whereby we are participating in the parliament and our views and concerns were heard and were solved. Thank you.
Thank you. And we just have a response. Hold on. We have another respondent in the front row. Hold on a second.
My name is Kahanala Fatomalapo from Lesotho. I think you as government officials could include DRR as in the subject in schools. Thank you.
Okay, we just have an immediate response from the Minister of Health of Lesotho herself. It's a comment, okay? It's a comment.
Thank you very much, and I'm so greatly honored to be part of you. I want to congratulate this panelist. Well done. I also want to congratulate the gentleman from Vietnam. We wish you all the best. This has been a very great job indeed, and the children are just human beings like all of us. They are not asking for too much. Lesotho as a country, we support the Children's Charter. The children deserve to go to school. They deserve protection. They have the right to information, and they have to be secured in a shelter. They deserve the shelter, and then they are also beautiful. And I'm honestly requesting each and every one of you to support the children. Not just these children, but children all across the world. Once again, I would like to repeat what has already been said. Our condolences to the victims of Oklahoma City. These are the children, these are human beings. And I would like to thank all the partners, everybody who has contributed to support the children. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I see there's so many hands up. We have little time. Let me just ask one question from our Twitter audience. I would feel bad if we didn't have at least one question. This is from Asha Sazad, asking, how then can we include children who are out of school in disaster risk reduction, given so much of our work is in schools? Okay. Hiroto?
Yeah. Okay, so Hiroto from Japan wants to answer. It seems like.
これはやっぱり、地域、学校ではなく地域ぐるみでの、活動が必要だと思います。はい。もしくは本当に、国全体を挙げての活動が必要だと思います。はい。
For the children out of school, there should be activities, community-based activities, and then also there has to be nationwide activities as well.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Okay. Sophia?
We should include children who are out of school in the DRR activity, because those children are most vulnerable than children in school who are in no DRR.
ចាអញ្ចឹងពេលតបតកៈបានចូលរៀននៅក្នុងសាលាមែនប៉ុន្តែយើងអាចបញ្ជ្រាបការងារកាត់បន្ថយគ្រប់ភេទនៃក្រុមហ៊ុនត្រៃទៅតាមសហគមន៍តាមរបៀបការធ្វើយុទ្ធនាការផ្សព្វផ្សាយឬក៏ការចុះប្រជុំតាមសហគមន៍របស់ពួកគាត់
Even they are not in school, but we should have activity in the community because they are in community, such as the campaign to raise awareness on DRR with them.
ចាអរគុណ
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Let me move on. Let's try and get two more questions in before the end. Sir, with the ball at the front.
My name is Atif, and I'm from South Asian Disability Forum.
I have a question, very simple question to Jain from Vietnam. Tell me, your school is accessible or not? I mean, can you move on your wheelchair in your school to your classroom or come out easily? Thank you.
Yeah, no.
Yes, I can move. I can move my wheelchair inside our school. Because he is learning at a private disability organization. Okay. So everything is accessible for children with disability.
Great. We have the ball magically passed over already. Yes, ma'am, can you introduce yourself as well, please?
Yeah, my name is Christa Rose. I work for the United Nations International Strategy for Disaster Reduction. And I just want to answer to the Japanese girl, Miri, I think, Akiri, and at the same time to a colleague from Save the Children regarding Margareta Wallström's response to the Tokohoku message. And precisely when Margareta traveled to Japan, she was extremely impressed by the group of children that she met there. And since then, she's been advocating extremely strongly on several fronts to have children duly recognized as a formal stakeholder group for disaster risk reduction at the same level as government, mayors, parliamentarians, NGOs, etc. And the reason on every single global platform since 2009, 2011, and again today, we have really promoted and worked closely with the partners that are on the Children's Charter that, by the way, we're also supporting, to really make sure that children get an opportunity to raise their voice on every single global platform and also at the regional level in the Asian Ministerial Conference on Disaster Risk Reduction, the Americas Platform on Disaster Risk Reduction. In all regions, we have managed, together with the partners, to make sure that children get a role to play, raise their voice, and contribute to the decision-making process, let's say, at the regional and global level in international forums on disaster risk reduction. And I would like also to highlight in particular that in this current global platform, we had a group of high-level people, individual government representatives who met on Tuesday morning. And this group, together 40 high-level participant government representatives who committed, thanks to Margareta's strong leadership, to really make sure that children and school safety is a very important priority in the post-2015 Hyogo framework, including for school safety, for the protection of children, and make sure that they have a role in the decision-making process. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Yes, I think we have a ball in the middle here. Thank you. A joint question. Very good.
Buenas tardes, nosotros pertenecemos a la delegación venezolana, mi nombre es Lergin Cárdenas y mi hermano es Charles Torrealba. Okay, no es ninguna pregunta, simplemente queremos relatar unas palabras que engloba lo que he venido hablando en este parlamento y puede ser un punto de reflexión. Los niños, adolescentes y jóvenes no pertenecemos a naciones, sino somos una nación. Y esta nación está compuesta de una esencia pura y limpia, espiritual, mental y físicamente. Por esa razón, nosotros como pertenecientes a la misma, debemos fundamentar un liderazgo colectivo y efectivo, creando un paradigma basado en principios y valores, que para lograr objetivos en la reducción de riesgos y desastres, debemos llevar a cabo una unión, una integración, un esfuerzo, un trabajo, un juego en el que todos ganemos, una creación de un equipo que pueda hacer de este mundo un mundo resiliente, con menos vulnerabilidad, un mundo habitable y de convivencia. lleno de
and one that is
preparación y
comfortable
herramientas
to
para
live
combatir y
in
enfrentar esta
together.
realidad
In order to share this reality,
que nos concierne a todos y que nos
we
importa a
must raise
todos. Por y
awareness
para ello,
among
están
everybody.
en nuestras manos, por y para ello, está
In
en
order
nuestras
to
manos
do
como
this,
jóvenes, niños y
we
niñas y
must
adolescentes
seize the
a través
day
de
as young
nuestra
people
intrépida
and
esencia
teenagers
y ese poder de
and
cambio que
work
tenemos en nuestro
through
interior
our
para
innovative
influir,
spirits in order to
fomentar y
share
liderar
this
en las decisiones
and
que se
to
tomen en cuanto a la
create
reducción de riesgos y
leadership in
desastres
reducing the risk
y
of
mucho más allá
disasters
que eso.
and go
Esta
far
es una
beyond
nueva
this.
era, una
This
era
is a
de
new
cambio en el
epoch,
que los niños,
an epoch
niñas,
of change,
jóvenes y
where
adolescentes
young
somos el
people
pilar de
and
nuestras naciones
adolescents
y el
are the
futuro del
pillar
mundo.
of our
Seamos
nation
grandes,
and the
seamos
future
útiles,
of our world.
seamos
We must be
jóvenes
great, we must
y
be
busquemos
useful,
ese niño
and we
interior
must
que
channel our
tenemos
youth.
y demos ese primer paso que con
We must make
convicción,
this
liderazgo,
first courageous
confianza y
step
fe
of
podemos
conviction,
lograr excelentes
conviction and faith
resultados.
in order
Muchas
to
gracias por su
create
atención.
the best results. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I'm told we don't quite need a response to that, and the translators weren't able to quite keep up, but I think a lot of people understood what... I think we can squeeze in one final question. It's Madam here. Where is the ball? In the middle here. I know the lady here with the gold necklace has been waiting for some time. And sorry to everybody else who has their hand up. Let me address that in a moment.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Odile Bulten, and I work with UNICEF in Niger. And I have a question for the panel of experts. Have any of you considered or even asked or approached your governments to create, in whatever ministry that would be relevant, an advisory body to them in terms of DRR issues? Because I listen to my children, and they do advise me sometimes, and it works. So maybe if it hasn't been done yet, that might be food for thought.
Bày cho họ cách về phòng chống giảm nhẹ thiên tai hay chưa?
Yeah.
So do you want to ask which?
Dạ, có chưa?
Okay, we're just waiting for the translation again. So we need clarification. So the question is, have there been any discussions with government agencies to establish a children's advisory body to the government, to the ministry? On DRR, yes. Yes.
Sally? I have already asked my Honorable Minister here that when we get back home, she should open doors for us so that we can improve disaster risk reduction, participation, education, and reaching the most vulnerable.
Okay, we're running very much out of time now. So just in closing, I want to just give the children, or particularly any children who haven't spoken in this question and answer session, do you want to say anything in closing to the meeting? I just want to make sure that we're not losing any voices here. You want to say? Yeah, okay.
岩手県船戸市から来ました、17歳のカナです。
My name is Kana. I come from Ofunato City in Iwate Prefecture. I'm 17 years old.
私たちは、子供たここにいる子どもたちが言ったように、子どもたちは何かできないかと考えていたり、自分たちの経験をもとに防災について真剣に考えていることが分かったと思います。その中
I'm sure you, by now, you understand children are thinking very seriously about the DRR.
そんな中で、私たちは、被災地震で影響を受けた中高生で、防災について話し合ったものを、先ほども言ったようにこの提言書にまとめました。
As my friend Ayumi presented a little bit earlier, children from the affected area, the areas affected by the disaster in Japan, put together the proposal titled Voices of Children from Tohoku.
どうしても皆さんにこれを多くの人に、できるだけ多くの人に読んでほしいので、 私も今持っているので、ぜひ来てください。
Okay, I also have copies. I really want everybody to read this important document. I have a couple of copies, so please come to me and I will give you a copy.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so we've gone over time. I'm very sorry to those who didn't get to ask questions. I would like to invite you, if you have questions or you would like to speak with our children, you can come forward at the end of the session. Please, of course, be kind and be gracious, but they will stay here for a little while to incorporate, I think, some of your added comments. We don't want to lose those. I just want to say, by way of closing, a really big thank you to all those who've made this possible. It really is a huge amount of work to put on a children's panel like this, and particular thanks to our children, of course. Thank you to our translators. Thank you to our... Thank you too to our chaperones, to our youth advocates who did a wonderful job here. To all the agencies who were involved in putting this together. Particular thanks to UNISDR for hosting this platform and for encouraging a session on children in DRR. Just in closing, I'm sure you all agree, and you'll leave this session thinking that children have a big role to play in the World Conference on Disaster Reduction, in HFA2, not just at the World Conference when everything is decided, but in the lead up to it, as we've heard from ISDR, as an equal stakeholder participant. Thank you all, and very much for your attention. Goodbye.